Hey everybody, I'm the Rum,
And I'm the wine.
and we're right here on location in our apartment in Dublin. So today, what we've got for y'all is a little bit of a different format. We realised that we've been living here now in Ireland for 5 years.
Almost 6.
Yeah, wow. And yeah, so we're basically thinking we've got 5, almost 6 years of experience here, and we're going to talk about what it's like kind of being here for 5 years. So we've always been living here a while, and you know what the crazy things is that realize we haven't been actually around as much. By around I mean like rural Ireland. We're here in Dublin, like, but what places have we seen?
And that's only very recently actually, to be honest. Within like the last year, we've been to Sligo, Galway,
Waterford. Yeah, Waterford's there.
somewhat Cork. We drove through and had some food on the way to Blarney Castle.
Right, did we say Galway?
I already said Galway.
Okay.
There's technically leaving County Dublin to go to Bray Count.
I'm gonna call it that. A couple of years ago we were in Skerries.
That's that's not County Dublin, I think.
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly proving the point of how, not near or far we have been, and it's only because of last year that we really were like, we're stuck here because of the obvious thing that was happening in 2020 and 21, and yeah, so that's one of the things is that I don't know, it may also be a bit of a point of transport, because if you're watching our videos, we don't have a car, we like to walk a lot and take the trains, and yeah, we just don't want the expense of a car right now. That feels like if it makes it a bit harder to see things, because I know I started some new jobs and stuff, so one of my I almost said classmates. I'm not in university anymore. That's been gone for a while. One of my workmates there, he's got cars. He's driving up and down and seeing different sort of things. I guess that's one of the things that you get provided with once you're able to move about from place to place in Ireland. Otherwise, if you're stuck in Dublin, I guess you see different parts of Dublin. We haven't even. There are some not counties. What do you call those things?
Districts?
Districts, yes, yeah. Districts, postal codes in Dublin that we haven't even gone to yet.
And I think it's not just us as such, and some people might already type in the comments, "Oh, you're such typical Dubliners, can barely leave like the city line, let alone County Dublin line." And yes, that is true. It might also just be a side effect of living in Dublin. Like if we lived anywhere else in Ireland, maybe we'd be up to travelling around a lot more. And it's not that we didn't want to. That was definitely one of the things. And I also hear from other people that they want to move here because they love the gorgeous landscapes and they want to go out there, go for hikes and all those things. And we do want to do these things. But it's just so weirdly hard to organise. If you don't have a car and if you don't already know an area, like it's easy enough to go to other cities like we did with like Galway, Sligo, Waterford.
It's the anywhere with a train connection, really. That's kind of how we do it. We like throw a dart. It's like, throw a dart. We catch the dart or whatever train there is, and that's usually where we end up. I don't really travel by bus as much, but it's looking like that's a thing we may have to start doing to see more places.
Even so, it's like a lot of the locals you talk to, like maybe if they're from the countryside, maybe they go home, don't really go anywhere else either. Like they might tell you about like, "Oh yeah, you should check out this place in Donegal or somewhere," and you're like, "Oh yeah, so when did you go?" And you're like, "Oh well, I was in school, I guess, so like 20 years ago," and it's like
it's like when have you been recently? Well, I can't tell you it recently. So that's
in the last 10 years at least. Where have you been in Ireland in the last 10 years? Let us know in the comments. Tell us where to go.
But yeah, speaking of where to go, I'm kind of like a bit lost, not lost, but trying to figure out what is it that you would, when people come to Ireland, what is it that you really want to see or do in rural Ireland? What is it that you're actually missing? For me, I'm just like a fan of anything that's like the seaside. And I get to see the cliffs. Of course, we went to like Cliffs of Moher, of course. And I don't know, I haven't done too much to enjoy interior Ireland. Interior Ireland. Oh, this is how I can tell from the Caribbean. Because I got some friends from Ghana and they call, middle of Ghana like the interior. So, interior Ireland. What do you call it? Midlands? Yes, sorry. Midlands, I guess. I don't know.
All those counties that no one talks about, like Longford. What do you do in County Longford? Let us know in the comments.
Yeah, that's the thing. I guess that's the thing, that you don't know what's there, or no one tells you what's there, so you're not really, thinking, yes, I need to go there. There's this great site I need to go and see there. I think that's one of the issues. You hear about lots of stuff to do in Dublin, Cork, etc. I'm sure there's a Well Atlantic Way. I've heard of the Well Atlantic Way. We've been on the Well Atlantic Way, but no one's exactly telling you what you're going to do there besides drive along the coast.
Yeah, like there are some activities there you could do, like surfing or other water related things, I suppose. Eating lots of food, which is mainly the thing we have been doing. But like one other thing that's also been a bit of a prohibitive factor of us going around more other than the cars, it's kind of really expensive. Like if you're trying to go somewhere more remote, you'll have to stay overnight probably. You also have to plan a lot because the nearest supermarket might be further away. Because the one time we stayed in West Cork, I did not realise how far supermarkets are away from the place you might be staying in. Adult accommodation is just so expensive. So I do understand why locals sometimes think, well, for the same price that it takes me to stay somewhere in one county over or somewhere by the sea, I could also go to Spain and stay in an all-inclusive place. I'm like,
what's up with Spain? What's up with Spain? Everything is Spain. It's crazy because we were kind of watching some stuff on YouTube ourselves, some of these old videos of Ireland, and even then,
like by old we mean like the news interviewing people in like an RTE interview with random people on the street from like the 60s about where are they gonna go on holiday.
And they're still like, Spain, Spain, Spain. Nothing has changed. I guess it's just somewhere to go with sun.
Which we do understand as well.
Definitely. But, speaking of where the sun shines, it is not Ireland a lot of the time. So, I think that's partially also why, because follows this channel itself. We usually wait until, spring, summer, parts of autumn to actually go somewhere, which means that there's a big chunk of the year that we're just waiting for it to be warmer and, more inviting to go out.
It's kind of funny, like when you first come here, like people will make jokes about like, oh yeah, summer in Ireland, my favourite day of the year. And things like that. You just think people are like exaggerating and it's just, a funny thing people say.
Yeah, no, they are not taking the piss. They're not taking the piss. This is... Yeah,
the longer you stay here, just like... The moment it looks like sunny, like we now understand by the news every time report if like the weather might actually climb above 20 degrees Celsius, whatever the hell that is in Fahrenheit, I don't know. But like at first we were like, wow, news really don't have anything to cover here. That they're like, this weekend temperatures might reach record high, 23 degrees somewhere in a random spot in County Mayo, probably not even where you're living. But it's like everywhere in the news. And then the longer you live here, you get so excited when you read these news articles and you get so heartbroken when you realise it's not going to be that hot because predictions change, or also you're just in the wrong part of Ireland.
Yeah, it's been that way because it's been happening that recently. It's like we're getting these nice temperatures during the week. Weekend hits dreary.
Literally outside right now.
This is the middle of the day. We have lights on us. This is not natural light. It is dark and gloomy outside right now. But fair enough is that when it is lovely spring, summer, it is gorgeous. I mean, we've got our park close by. There are flowers. Of course, there are bees. I don't see the bees, but there are lots of birds and wildlife and stuff. There's, it's lovely green, Emerald Isle and all that sort of stuff.
Like you don't really, in other places at least, I mean you don't really have seasons as much as I did growing up in Austria, but like you'd see older people get really excited about like the first spring flowers and you're like, whatever, it's a flower. And now these days we walk through the park and I'm like, is this the first flower trying to blossom? It's like, this is this type of flower, that type of flower, and I'm like, how do I even know what type of flowers these are? But I just get excited about seeing them blossoming because I'm like, summer's coming, it's gotta be warm, it's gotta be more sunlight soon.
Yeah, I stop and take pictures of flowers now Why? Because it's green. It's so I was like, ooh. So I can remember when it comes around to, December, January, February, what green looks like. That's more like the Caribbean person me talking like, what is this winter? Why is it there? Where's my sunlight?
Because that is a really good point that you might underestimate, but just how high up Ireland is. That because in Austria, sure, we're like shorter days in winter. It gets dark sooner. You're like, it's not my favorite time of year, but you can survive it because in summer it'll be nice. In Ireland, it gets dark sooner, but you do get the longer nights in summer. Like we were just saying the other day that because right now it's June,
right. Yeah.
it is so bright outside.
The crazy thing is that we realize is that you could almost not see nighttime in Ireland in like June. Cause say for example, you go to sleep, let's say earlyish time, 10:30. The sun could still be up. And then you wake up in the morning, even if you wake up at a crazy early time like me, 5:30 or something, there's still sun. It's such a lovely, change from when winter comes and it's like, oh, guess what? It's dark.
Like, I would be fine if they saved some sun from the morning hours and someone put it in winter because I'm not up at 5:30 to enjoy it. I'm more like still trying to sleep and annoyed by the sunlight coming into the window. But I do enjoy the long nights. It definitely, it feels like you just have so much more energy. We've had a couple of times we were just walking outside and it was just very bright outside and we look at the time and we're like, did I just curse? Yes, sorry.
I shouldn't beat whatever up, man. We're in Ireland.
I said, fuck, it's not very appropriate. Fuck, it's already 10 p.m. and you can't even really so much tell because sure the sun might be setting a little bit, but it's still really bright outside.
Yeah, I do really like that. And it also makes for the same travel. Because that's one of the things in winter where we don't go out too much. It's like, we want to see these sites, but then you've got this small time frame to see some stuff.
And that brings us back to the thing about rural Ireland. It's really hard to go anywhere unless you have the long daylights, because if you're going to be, even if you're not driving, if you're just going somewhere on a day trip by bus, if you're in a different place or in a more rural place without the streetlights, you need the daylight.
Yeah, so that's the thing, but the truth is that if you're here, man, once you have a lovely, gorgeous day, like we were just last week in Bray, going up Bray's Head. If y'all remember that video of where to live in Ireland, Bray is that same place. But the thing is, I think we got it even more. It was a gorgeous day. It wasn't as hot, thank goodness.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I've been here so long talking about, oh my gosh, it isn't as hot. It's my...
Let us know again. What are winter temperatures in Barbados? The coldest that it gets?
23 degrees is kind of a cold night. It can get down to 22 maybe. But yeah, for most people, 23 degrees is, put on your hoodie kind of weather if you're going out, or make sure you have your long sleeves on.
Now let's compare it with Ireland, where 14 degrees is where hoodies and everything come off, people are half naked in the park, and 23 degrees is basically a heat wave. Yeah,
and we had a lot, like the first year we came here, we got tricked, because it was one of those years where the temperature got, 25 or something, and we're thinking, man, we heard Ireland is, cold, this is 25 degrees, this is fine. I remember, I think it was the same Bray to Greystones walk, and I was just like shedding layers. It was like, I think we were down to one layer, and like, man, this is the same as the Caribbean. We're fine here. Yeah, that was 2018. Still waiting on the next heat wave. Hasn't graced our presence as yet, but
Well, there was a very short heat wave last year, and I literally remember people saying they're cancelling the holidays in Spain or whatever. It's going to be similarly warm. And it was so warm for 1 week. I was roasting. I was sweating. I do not know how I'll survive going to Barbados this year, because anything in excess of 17 degrees I start sweating. I don't know how I'm going to deal with near 30 degrees in the Caribbean sun. But that too is a change that might happen to you if you've lived here long enough.
Oh yeah, no, sorry, I talked to my friends, temperatures going up, summertime, 33 degrees. Yeah, gotta love that. So we're back from lunch. Yes, I love this editing magic. oh yeah, it's like 2 hours later. And guess what? Still gloomy outside. And that kind of brings us into another thing, because, you know, when you think of Ireland, Irish people, you're thinking about the crack, fun, all this sort of things. You know, generally fun, loving people, but the longer you stay here, the more you understand. You understand another side that is just as gloomy and depressing as the weather.
That's maybe a bit harsh, but if you put, of course, if you put some behaviours in contrast of the crack that you know you can sometimes have with people, it's gonna feel like a more extreme difference.
Yes, and that it does. So what you're like, okay, big words, Sam, big words. Well, wine. I switched to my actual other nickname there, but yes, I talk to myself in the third person. What you gonna do about it, huh? So in a less aggressive tone. You know, it's because as you stay here, you start listening to a bit more to the radio, the news, and you know what's happening in the society and the community. And that's when you start hearing about, hey, what's wrong with Ireland, or what's wrong with Dublin, or, you know, train systems and transport and
you even
rent
notice
prices.
that looking at our comments, if you look at our comments, you can spot the local by looking at whatever is the harshest comment about Dublin or Ireland. If it starts off with Dublin is a kip, guaranteed local.
Yep, anything that's shameful, you know, that's about it. And well, the thing is that yes, these things are true, but they're also really dependent on the location. Like, let me go a simple example. Let's go with, yeah, I guess this is a topic that we'll cover in another video in more detail, and that topic is about, you know, work and that sort of thing, but it sometimes feels like you're almost waiting for the next thing to go wrong. Right now, as we're recording this video, there's the troubles with the airport, or troubles that not at the airport. It's, you know, it's probably happening in several other places. I know some UK airports have trouble, and the US and so on. It's that kind of feeling that you're here, you've come here, you're working, you're studying, whatever, and then you're having a great time, and then something happens, like it's the end of your rental agreement as a student. So now you've got to find a new place to rent. You know, and there the crack goes. And if, because you be there, enjoy yourself, someone would be like, yo, here's this other thing you need to look out for.
And a lot of time it's well-meaning, like people telling you just how awful trying to rent is. And it's like, yes, we know, we've in this case not recently tried to rent. We wouldn't want to try and rent right now because it seems even worse. But it's not so helpful if you're like, oh yeah, I'm looking for a place to rent, and then you just hear 10,000 stories of how awful and almost impossible it is to find a place.
Yeah, because right now we don't need to move, but at the same time it's kind of called the exposure. Even we're afraid of renting, and I don't need to move from this place. It's like that. You know, we were looking for our jobs, we got some new jobs, and I guess it's a bit of the news. The news media, it's always about, hey, what's going wrong? It's like I see more, it's not serious things going wrong, it's just like small things that, like, I guess they're like mosquito bites a bit. They would get very annoying in their full impact, but that's the thing, really. But now that I think about it, yeah, that's just one small piece of the puzzle. Because sometimes you can't tell if there's actually legitimate complaints or if it's just a bit of banter.
Like, for example, we have a WhatsApp group for the apartment block that we live in, and there are a lot of locals, there are also some expats. And I think sometimes there's sort of arguments start because people will complain about something, or people like to use very strong words like, oh, this is shameful, or like they like their superlatives. Like this is like absolutely the worst about like maybe relatively small measures, and then some other people take it very literal and it'll keep going. But sometimes it's a bit funny because like you can tell who's the local and for whom it's maybe just banter and they're not even that serious about it, but then another person might think it's like taken very, very much at face value. I think they're having a real serious argument right now, but they're not. It's just banter. and people are just slagging each other off a bit because it's just what you do.
Yeah, that's what you do. That's what you do. It's one of those things that you gotta get used to. You know, even the office sometimes, you know, have some, you know, presidential past workmates that are just like, is this completed or is it banter? Then I soon learned, oh no, this is banter. I can, you know, get a nice slag in myself. I think that one of my favourite things that have changed is pretty much the food.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you know, sure, we can talk about supermarket, but also just the types of restaurants and stuff there are now versus what there is when we came here first in 2017. Yeah.
Yeah, like if you look back at the places we used to live in, and like weirdly we do go back to the areas, or not so weirdly because we moved to those areas because we liked the areas. So it makes sense that we find ourselves again in the neighborhoods, and in both cases we noticed there are a lot more restaurants there now, and like a variety of restaurants. There's like the best Japanese restaurant we've ever been to, probably. Like the ramen was so nice.
Yeah, we are like addicted to Japanese restaurants. Every time we were like, this is the best. No, this is the best. And now we found, yeah, I think this is the best one we found so far. Nice ambience, you know. It's like, oh, this bowl of ramen. It's like an actual, because this one wasn't, yeah, most of them before we had takeout, but this one was like actual like bowl
sit down restaurant style
thing.
kind of. Especially if you just came from a long walk in the previously mentioned gloomy weather. Very nice.
Yeah, and you know, of course we don't just eat Japanese. Of course, there's other stuff like some of my new workmates are Brazilian, so I've been slowly being introduced to different sort of Brazilian places. I say places, I've just been one place so far. I know they have some sort of sushi and stuff. Tough being a vegetarian though, when so much of the menus look like delicious meats, and I don't know too much of Brazilian cuisine, but it looks like there are definitely more meat eaters out there, so vegetarian meat has to settle for some delicious but a kind of like less variety in there. Alright, and then that place where we went down south, what's the south?
A Lebanese. We went to get a Lebanese breakfast, which is very vegetarian friendly.
Yeah, definitely, because one of the things about when I first went to Austria, and Julia introduced me to this Turkish breakfast, I was like, I've been salivating, waiting for the next time to have some, and it was quite a surprise that we just went down there to Wicklow. Right, Wicklow was one of the other places.
Another place we've been to that we already forgot again, even though it's the most recent one.
Yeah, I was there. I wasn't expecting to like a little Lebanese restaurant type place there. So it's all these little surprises that you have now in the city now, and outside the city and just everywhere. I mean, I guess we didn't spend too much time in Sligo, but you know, I guess we go discovering Sligo. I know that Cork apparently has good food places. We were there. We went to a burger place the last time. Not that burgers aren't terribly exciting, but they had a good milkshake though.
So speaking of it being hard for vegetarians, or almost vegetarians, since I kind of stopped eating meat since living with this one, because I'm not about to cook like a whole chicken for myself or something. So we realized our cuisine is maybe a bit different than a lot of locals would eat, because the other day we'd ordered food like from the supermarket, and there was a bit of a mix-up, and I was handed this bag and I looked down and I'm like, that is clearly so obviously not the stuff we ordered, but it looked like the most Irish shop that you could think of, and that made us realize our cuisine is quite different, because when I pointed it then out to the person who delivered the food that wasn't ours, and we had to go through our order list like item by item, she was like, oh well, this is very obviously yours. Oh, the oat milk, yeah, that's clearly yours. And we're like, how different is our shopping habits from like the locals that it's that obvious?
Yeah, it even came down to the cheese, you know. I've got some Gouda cheese there, some Emmental maybe, and you know, the other packager was like, cheddar. Nothing against cheddar, I'm just like, it's cool, but give me some cheddar or some Gouda, you know. That's been a big difference there. Of course, there's also the more vegetarian type things, you know, your sausages and stuff. Not real sausages, no, veggie sausages, veggie burgers, all this sort of stuff. And yeah, wow, what else did we see in that
It's like
thing?
there are certain things that we see everywhere in the supermarket, so that's what we assume the average Irish family buys, or at least the one whose shop they got accidentally.
It's the bread.
It's the bread.
It's the bread.
Because I admit that was the first thing I saw where I was like, this is clearly not a shop. Because no offense to anyone on this island, but Austrians have very particular feelings about our bread. We are very particular about our types of breads. We like the big loaves that are like darker, that have a different flour, that are not as soft and squishy as the
none of the sliced
square
bread thing.
Yeah.
You know, I used to eat it, but now like I'm converted. I was like, sliced bread, I could go somewhere. It's like, they have to give you toast. I'm like, toast. Why? Give me some semmel or something. Jeez.
He says, literally quoting like the almost one type of Austrian bread-like thing that is the most like the dough is the most closest to that. Okay.
It is fine. It is fine. It is better. It is better. It's nice little bunnets there. That give me some semmel. I'm not as adventurous with the breads as this one over here. I'm like, I'm okay with breads being brown and having lots of seeds and stuff in them, but not too much. I'm trying to eat some bread, not a... I don't know, I was going to say something for birds, but I couldn't find the correct insult.
But yeah, when it comes to food, our hot take we realised is that we still quite haven't adapted to the Irish cuisine, and part of the reason for that is that we make a very big effort to try and eat healthy, because we know with like full-time jobs it can be hard to get enough exercise in, so we're very focused on our diet.
And working at home too, that was one thing from the pandemic. So I cut in there, but it's like, movement is a thing. So if you can eat healthier and so on like that, then makes it a bit easier to sit on your ass all day.
Well, we realised the Irish cuisine isn't necessarily always helpful with that. Like, obviously there's super delicious stuff. Like, I like going to the pub and ordering like the properly nicely cooked stuff, not what I would try and attempt to cook at home. But it's also the smaller things, like when we looked at that shopping bag and we saw the white sliced bread, or the packaged coleslaw, because we see that everywhere in the shops.
Yes.
And we're like, so people actually buy that then. It must be a big thing.
Yeah, because back home we eat coleslaw as well, but not dripping wet like if it's been, I just caught this from the ocean, like if it's a bunch of seaweed, that's what it is. So that's like, let's get swimming in whatever that thing is. I don't know if it's mayonnaise or whatever, I don't know. Too much. Just too much.
But also, again, on the topic of being somewhat vegetarian, is like, people here love their sausages. Out of like fair play to them, they have a wide variety of them, more than I've frankly seen in like Austria, and Austria, Germany are quite known for the sausages, so fair play to having that much of a variety. But if you're not into that, it's like you try go to have breakfast at some place and you'll have to go for the one avocado toast veggie option a lot of the time, or the porridge, because there isn't too much options for the non-meat eaters. Yeah,
pastry and coffee for me, that's usually what I end up with. I do see people with their sausage rolls, and like, well, that's nice, but it's not for me. I'm missing out on some of these things, like, what other things? I guess the only thing at pubs I go for is, your fish and chips. Thank goodness there's at least fish and chips, but one can only eat so much fish and chips.
Because that's a bit the pity sometimes, which is also why we talked about the variety of restaurants that we find now in some areas of town, is that if you're going out and you're not eating meat, you look at the menu and have maybe one vegan green curry. Why does every pub do the same menu, by the way? But you have that, or you have fish and chips. So if you're vegetarian except for fish, it's what you end up eating all the time. But also fish and chips isn't necessarily the healthiest. Like, there's healthier ways to prepare it, but sometimes, like, looking at the more greasier kind, I've tried them before. My stomach didn't like the experience. So that is like another aspect of Irish cuisine, where we're like, we'd love to partake more in it if my stomach can stand it, but it's like not really for us. So we feel a bit like we're missing out on that, like going to the chipper and getting your spice bag and whatever.
Yeah, she might. I
No,
don't.
no, I don't trust my stomach with that.
Yeah, there's a quite a difference between going to your local kind of chipper sometimes, you know, where I think we lived near one and it's like, yeah, we had it once and that's too greasy. It was just thing.
It's like I opened it and my stomach immediately was like, where's the schnapps to go along with it? Because I will need it to digest the stuff. I'm not used to the kind of greasier foods, kind of like the way I grew up.
Yeah, so I'm going to stop us on this topic before someone comes with their pitchforks to get us out of Ireland, because the batteries start to run out. So we need to end this up. End this up soon. Where's my words? Basically, we haven't been posted for a little while, so we decided, hey, here's a long video. There should be enough wine and rum in here to satisfy people for, a couple of weeks maybe. Hey, let us know if you kind of like this format of us talking a bit longer. Not exactly a podcasty style, but a bit more informally, because we've given you all a lot of information. We actually even met. And then a subscriber, we were just walking outside, just like, say, hi, do you have any videos on YouTube? Like, yeah. So.
And then he was like, oh, I moved here because of you. And I'm like, wow, that's a lot of responsibility. We hope you made the right choice.
Yeah, I think she said watching videos, not because, but we were part of the information gathering. Yeah. So, happy for everyone that we've helped out, come over to this place. And definitely hope that we didn't, sorry about the weather. It's good, but some is not so good as well. Anyways, I hope you all have a lovely, wonderful day. Thanks for watching. Of course, do subscribe if it's your first time and you made it this far. Congratulations. Hope you did. Give it a like, subscribe, go through our, other argument. Let us know. Anything else you want us to talk about? More casual like this, because this was fun,
Alright, see you next time.
Okay, that's it. Später.
Bye.
Bye.